Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us for today's Trade the Chain Daily Show. I'm joined by our Director of Research, Nick Mancini, and Doug, the Everyday Guy DeRosa. Although we might start calling Nick the Bear Mancini, which actually has a ring to it. A lot of stuff happening in crypto. I suspect we're not going to get a lot of people to join the show now live because the Celsius, the official UCC, is holding a Twitter Spaces right now for a town hall of some sort. And I'm sure a lot of the customers there are focused on that. Hey, Lucas, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us today. But it's okay because we're going to get into it anyway. If you caught Nick's daily show previous to this, you saw an in-depth analysis to the market, what's happening. He's going to further explain what's going on there. Is crypto doomed? Is it failed? I don't know. We'll discuss it. Some days we're happy, some days we're sad. Also, Voyager had a big win, I suppose, with FTX. We'll talk about that for a little while as well, and what's going on there. And Doug, how you doing today? I mean, the UK is failing. Are you okay?
My hat blew off in the hurricane. So
well, I think Doug's in the UK right now because it's a little dark in his place. I think he's saving energy.
That is right. Doug, the everyday guy DeRosa is waiting out. He's hunkered down as Hurricane Ian. It's Ian, right?
Ian, yes.
As Hurricane Ian passes directly over him, and we're not sure we're going to have Doug very much longer. He may blow off into the Atlantic, so we're giving him his last few minutes of video time here. But you look calm, Doug. Did you stock up on food?
I had one of those things last night where, the storm, when there's a tornado warning, that never hits like right now at 2:00 in the afternoon. Of course, it has to hit at 11:00 at night. So I had my feety pajamas on, all snuggled up in bed. And then all of a sudden, like tornado, your phone goes off. And it's like, what the heck is going on? And no one why does that happen everywhere? Like with the Puerto Rico hitting, with a hurricane hitting Puerto Rico, did that hit at night in the dark or did it hit like in the afternoon?
I don't know. I sleep at night. It doesn't matter if there's a hurricane going on.
It always happens. Though.
If there was a tornado,
Genie's in LA. All he has is earthquakes.
Well,
yeah, we're definitely due for a century-making earthquake event based on historical trends. So that's definitely in the back of my mind.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've thought about this for a long time. I think one day we're going to give San Francisco back to the Pacific. We'll see about that. It could be the island.
Yeah, just hit the northern fault, not the lower one. Well, I can deal with a little shaking, but if I need running water, that's for sure.
Unbelievable. All right, folks, let's get into it. We're going to hit the macro right now. We have still under $1 trillion. I mean, it's just an optics thing. I like seeing over $1 trillion. I like seeing 3 trillion, 9 months ago. But we don't have that today. Bitcoin at 19.3 and change, up 1.8% for the 24-hour, which is good because that makes me feel better than at 18. Unless I was in a buying mood, then I'd be bummed out. But don't worry, this isn't going to be the last time you could have bought Bitcoin for 18 in the 18,000s. We think differently. We think there'll be more on sale signs coming in the near future, and we'll explain that in a little bit when Nick takes the stage. But Bitcoin and Ethereum are at neutral territory right now. If you saw the tweet this morning for the hottest on Twitter, we got ZLW leading the way with a 1,073% increase over the last 20 days, social media. RSR coming in 5th there. A lot of talk about RSR lately. Same with Nexo. Nexo getting hit by California on that cease and desist. So that's probably negative sentiment right there. You can see they're down 2%. On the 24-hour. Heading down to the most bullish coins, here's a surprise for us, folks. Haven't seen BCH, Bitcoin Cash, in the top spot, I don't think ever. And here it is. Sitting number 1 on the most bullish coins is Roger Vere's coveted BCH, up a 0.5 point in the 24 hours, has a 91 score. We also got Cake in there at $4.80 with an 82 score, up 3.75%. So And then QNT, a lot of talk about QNT for the last, let's call it 3-4 weeks. It's really been getting hyped up. It's what the degens are all about these days. It's the new coin. $132 with an 81 score, up 3.5%. But I think if we look into it, let's hit the coin page on that real quick. I mean, first of all, sentiment. There you go with sentiment. It's been positive. It's been mostly bullish all week, and you can see the price rising on it. But here we got price change to USD, 30%, 30% in the last 30 days, 30% coming in 7 days. So that's been a winner for everybody that has been in that position. I see a lot happening on Twitter with the QNT crowd. Topping the most bearish coins, we got Store J with a score of 16. We got the Sell token with a score of 25, but it's up 5.5%. Why? Probably on the news that Alex Mashinsky resigned as CEO yesterday, and my phone literally yelled. I heard clapping from the crypto Twitter crowd when that happened. We got Hive, and then that token I don't recognize, BSV, coming in last on the most bearish. If we look at the coins page, you can see the sharp decline that's happened within the last hour on the 1 hour graph there. But it looks like, no real negativity on the 1 hour, 24 hour. There's a lot of green. So the market is keeping stride, not hitting new lows, as Nick pointed out in our pregame discussion here. But let's bring it back, and we'll get to Nick on what's happening in the charts.
Yeah, so keep in mind that the charts we're looking at are the hourly, and the most recent hourly candle just printed as of 10 minutes ago. So can't trust the current candle, but it gives us a really good view of where things are at. So yesterday when I did the daily show, we mentioned how, it was below the trend, and we may see, a little bit of a swing failure pattern back up in. We got rejected overnight, and now we are firmly back into the trading range that equities were in, dating back to, over the weekend, or going into the weekend, and obviously opening up. So good news is that we survived, what is pretty much, depending on exactly where you're looking at, equities did make fresh lows, but they bounced quickly enough to be called, what would potentially look like a double bottom compared to June. And I'll just zoom out, although we are a little bit lower on this chart, depending on if you're looking at ES or you're looking at SPY, kind of a double bottom. So, and obviously if we're looking at this daily, that is a pretty large bullish engulfing, and all we really need to do is close above this wick for it to be engulfing, but closing above this body of this wick, and especially this one, extremely positive, heading in towards the rest of the week. So if we close this strong, especially above the previous trend, then I would not be shocked to see equities have some sort of boost, at least back up to potentially 3750. And we can see there's a huge liquidity level at 3760 if we can get past this current trading range. So if we go back to the range, basically the most important level is the current one. You need to break, and I said this in the daily show, you need to break 3700 and push higher. We'll have resistance at 3770. And then, if you can get higher, there's a big old POC right here. And you can see where these liquidity levels line up, right here, just like I said. And again, at just under the POC and at the POC. So if equities move higher, vis-a-vis, crypto should move higher. So Bitcoin, obviously strong bounce, said on the Trade the Change show earlier today. Well, before we had a rise, I said if we could break above 19.1 and 19.3, we have a pretty nice path to 20.1, but we have to flip either 19.3 or 19.1 to support first. And clearly we're having a nice little reaction at 19.3, but there is a heavy liquidity level at 19.1. So I wouldn't be shocked to see us bounce down there before moving higher if equities cooperate. But we could certainly begin moving higher again from 19.3 if we get a strong close, maybe one or two closes above 19.3. For ETH, main levels are, I called out 13, I think I called out 1328 or 38, one of the two in the Trade the Chain community this morning. That hit to perfection. I said we basically needed to flip 1320 into supports. We are at that support level now. There's not entirely a lot of liquidity below, but 1305 could potentially be a bounce that coincides with the VWAP. So if we can basically flip either 1320 or 1305 into supports, we could be able to move higher back up to 1380, which you can see there's a large liquidity level there as well. And obviously looking at sentiment, Bitcoin pushing into bullish territory, ETH not entirely cooperating, but is still more or less neutral after a big bullish boost. And since it hasn't crossed below the bearish threshold of 40, I'm considering this to be neutral after a bullish continuation. And so as long as sentiment does not continue lower, I think that that's a positive for the market. So preliminarily, as long as we can hold current levels or just below where we're at, I can see things heading higher into the end of the week. And it seems to be the news is all around the European or the UK central bank instituting mass bond purchases, which is basically QE. So they went from QT to QE, and that seems to have given a bullish spike to the market. And I think the narrative that you're going to hear is that if UK is doing QE, rest of Europe will start doing QE, Asia will start doing QE, and then eventually the US will start doing QE. And if you're thinking that that is the narrative, then you're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and you're banking on the money printer going back on and it being a risk on environment. So that's kind of the narrative now. We'll see how it plays out, but that seems to be what's happening.
Let's talk about UK right now, real quick. You brought it up. A lot of headlines and news article going into the UK yesterday and this morning. What's going on over there exactly? Can you break it down in simplified terms for the folks out there? Because basically, in a one-shot deal, they basically created a catalyst for a deep dive in the economy. And I mean, there's literally letters of like unfitness coming in for the PM.
Yeah, so to put it in the most simplistic purposes, we know basic supply and demand. Increased supply with decreased demand typically leads to a lower price. And in the context of bonds, basically what the UK government was doing is trying to raise capital for other things. So they're releasing more debt, but because the UK bonds were already in a bad scenario, to put it lightly, the idea of the market is that there's not going to be demand for this increased supply of UK bonds. Therefore, the UK bonds price goes down. And because a typical portfolio will be 60-40 equities bonds, and especially you've got a lot of old school asset managers in the UK and in Europe as well, heavily weighted in bonds. So if bonds are crashing across, pension funds, investment funds, everyday retirement accounts, things like that, things are breaking. And so people are quite literally losing money, both in their personal investment accounts and their long-term tax advantage investment accounts because of this bond crisis. So because basically the UK government was going to increase the supply, demand was already stagnating. And because the reaction is if you're going to increase supply and nobody cares, price is going to go down. That broke a lot of things. We haven't seen what the break is, but clearly it hurt a lot of funds and people. And now the government has to step back in, basically cancel that plan, and then start buying back bonds to push the price up and basically creating a synthetic demand to soak up a bunch of supply to hopefully equilibrium everything out.
It sounds like T-bill auctions here.
It's very similar. I mean, everything, the way that everything is enacted is very similar country to country. It's just nobody has the dollar except us. And so that's a whole nother macroeconomic story for another time. But because we're insulated and our central government isn't printing more bonds like crazy, we have better methods to enact QE. The UK.
I think they're just jealous because the dollar's gotten so strong against their pound sterling that they're like, well, we can't let the Americans catch us.
No, so people are flying to Europe right now and burning money just for fun.
Yeah. I mean, the European Union's already like, wow, we just got our ass slapped around by the dollar, but the UK people, they're fighting back. They're like, nah, not going to happen.
I just couldn't believe why they did that. I mean, as someone, I mean, we don't have to talk about it now. We'll probably talk about it later, but the whole world was like, WTF, like The whole world was literally like, what are you doing? So,
Doug, before you blow out the window from a tornado, give us a breakdown of with what England has done, or the United Kingdom. England is not a country. United Kingdom is. With what the United Kingdom has done and where Europe stands now.
Well, the irony tying this into the topic of is crypto doomed? So in June, we had a lot of stress in the crypto ecosystem, obviously with Voyager, Celsius, Luna. And so everybody felt that that would cause stress in traditional finance and cause some type of systemic collapse across the ecosystem. So, in the last week, we've actually gotten a lot of transparency, ironically, in crypto. With at least now we have the Voyager bid out from FTX that could be topped by somebody. We have Mashinsky, who gave Alex M's all around the world a bad name. So I want to apologize to you, Alex. But we have him out of the picture. And Do Kwon, I guess now is Interpol's after him. He's kind of corresponding, but he's not. But at least I think there might
He started tweeting.
Yeah, so I guess he's around. So the irony is that we actually got what we wanted, a little bit of stability in crypto, and we're now getting the opposite in TradFi, where we have this acceleration of interest rates that are just unheralded, that are just causing chaos. And you just got to figure that there were big hedge funds, to Nick's point, that big players that were taking the other side of that trade that are blown out right now. And so we just don't know who those people are. But right now, somebody is marking to market a big shitload of stuff that when you read this quote, this is from somebody, I think from the central bank, significant repricing of UK and global assets. I mean, that just tells you like, wow, stuff basically collapsed there, right? So it is ironic that we were thinking that people were saying crypto was going to do that, and it wasn't. It was literally global bond markets. And again, we've talked about this here. The 2-year has gone from 30 basis points to 4.25 in less than a year. That's insane. And so we still keep believing that there's not going to be a recession here. I don't know what our leaders are thinking. But with that said, I personally think we are going lower. I think that the timing of this, ironically, and then we'll go back to crypto, is that we'll look at the calendar in 3 days starts October. And every market crash has happened in October. I don't know why it's setting up like that, but it is. And I wouldn't be surprised if we did have what we want actually for crypto is a big down move, swoosh it out, then we can start moving higher. I wouldn't be surprised if we get that in the US equity market and in stocks. We've essentially had that in the bond market, right? The bond markets have crashed globally. So
this is a really good one to what Doug has mentioned. So even in 21, in the thick of the bull, looking at equities, and Alex, if you want to pull up my chart, this is what I'm displaying. But in the thick of 21, we had a decrease basically for the entire month of September into October, and the low was the first week of October. So interestingly enough, so we're actually nearly repeating the same exact market pattern right now as we did previously. So you can see large dip, rise, large dip, rise, large, then another dip, basically inverse head and shoulders, and then it came out. So obviously it's much more exacerbated with volatility, but you can see how we dip, rise. Now we'll probably be volatile somewhere in this range unless we get something crazy, and then we'll have potentially one more downturn into early October that would lift us higher. So I'm with Doug that I still think it would be more likely than not to end up making new lows at some point in time. But at the end of the day, the market, and I've said this many times before, the market digests things extremely quickly. So the market is aware of everything going on right now and what doom and gloom may come, but it's still fundamentally driven. So it'll be very interesting to see what headlines push us lower, because right now it seems like we're set up for some relief because the market has digested everything. QE is starting in one region, potentially others. I get it. But, there's before you start maxing longs and buying this dip with vigor, you have to still be aware that we still have more central bank hikes or U.S. central bank hikes coming up, and we still have a bunch of question marks around how emerging and developed economies are going to deal with a strengthened dollar and things like that. And obviously, if the UK, who we assume is intelligent and wise, is creating economic policy that just did what it did the other day, you know, there's still a lot of potential black swans or red herrings waiting for us.
Agreed. I love Obi-Wan's Rectober comment. That's a great one. At Crypto Man, listen, I actually was going to come on here. There's been so much stuff happening today, but I wanted to make the show about the resignations and go down the list. Honestly, I compiled a bunch, but there's more to go. I'm scared I'm missing a few. There's been so many. It's not an easy list. The amount of resignations that have happened in crypto over the last 30 to 60 days is spectacular. And we're talking about blue chip CEOs, you know, people who've been around for a while, whether it was Genesis's CEO Morrow, or whether yesterday with Mashinsky.
Well, even FTX's
FTX US president just stepped down.
Well, their president, and they replaced one of the CEOs. And then Jesse Powell from Kraken.
Yeah.
And if everybody recalls, we all I remember talking about this news in 2020. Oh, all these CEOs are resigning. I wonder what's happening. 2 months later, market's down 50%. So, you know, that means obviously that was due to COVID, and we're already down quite a lot from the highs. But you know, coincidence.
I think there's a bottom signal, man. I honestly do. I think we have one more ditch digging effort in the market. That's when I'm going to do my big buys.
So you're invert. So when Web 2 companies CEOs start going is when you get the F out of the markets, but when the Web 3 companies start turning CEOs is when you get in.
When I go back in, yeah. Kevin O'Leary says bottoms are marked by carnage. CEO and CFI going under. If macro wasn't so bad, it probably would be the bottom for crypto. I agree. And Obi's a smart guy, man. You guys got to listen to him.
Kevin got roasted on Twitter yesterday, though. That was pretty funny. I do agree with Kevin, though, but he got roasted.
Folks, I want to remind everybody tomorrow on our weekly trading spaces episode on Twitter Spaces, 4:30 Eastern time. We got our good friend, CNBC analyst and Market Rebellion co-founder John Najarian will be joining us 4:30, and we'll be talking about trading in a down market, because just because the market is down, people are making a lot of money. And so we're going to discuss with him how that looks like both in the TradFi space and crypto. So don't forget to join us then. You know, speaking of Celsius and the Voyager debacle, I want to add this to the thing. Here are the two charts, sentiment versus price side by side. You could see on the left-hand side is Celsius. Big negative sentiment going down. You saw that drop, and that looks like it was around when Mashinsky decided to jump the ship and leave all those poor souls on board. And then to the right, you have VGX for Voyager there. You know, I would expect these charts to look a lot worse than they do. But Doug, what's your take on what's happening here? Are we having degen betting? Or is there any sentiment related to the charts that actually is showing people's hopes of money being returned to them?
Well, I think once the news came out, I don't think VGX went more than 10% higher. So again, that could be a couple things, right? That the news was baked in. Again, FTX was spoken a lot about as a potential suitor. So maybe that just wasn't fresh news. Maybe people just didn't like the optics around what the money was discussed. Or maybe they were looking for somebody else, right? But regardless, the price action has done nothing but really go south. So I don't really expect anything here, unless, like you said, there is the potential for another bidder to come out. I still have money on the platform, so full disclosure. My biggest concerns, like anybody, is, you know, what are we going to get, obviously, back? But then yesterday I tried to figure out, you know, if I'm the acquiring company in FTX, like I'm trying to fill gaps. I'm trying to acquire customers on the cheap, and I'm trying to fill gaps. And what gaps are there in the VGX token? So I didn't know this, but the FTT token is not available.
Not available in the US.
States. Didn't know that. So I go on the FTX website just to see what their rewards are and say, alrighty, how does this color and contrast with VGX? And I'm not able to do that. So I'd be really curious to find out, maybe you know, Alex, but what does the FTT token do over and above VGX, right? Because VGX already has money transmitter licenses in a lot of states here. FTT has no presence. That makes a really nice fit, unless it does a lot of the same things and they don't feel, or you can't integrate it. But so that's really my biggest question going forward is what does VGX do over and above what FTT was doing besides some spin the wheel for merchandise thing?
Yeah, no, I listen, I agree with you 100%. There's no denying VGX had one of the most robust, reward platform utility programs out there. FTT is definitely a step behind. Don't forget, folks, that FTX can still not win this thing. Even though the auction ended, they have until, I believe it's 3 weeks away. I keep forgetting the dates or something. Is it October 19th or whatever they extended the date for? They can be topped. So the deal is not sealed and done yet. You don't know who may have gone back to their friends for more money. The thing with FTX in general, as opposed to VGX, is they make money two different ways. FTX makes a crap load of money from its internal trading unit. How do I say it? It's kind of like when we were on the institutional side, Doug, in crypto. He'll take $1 billion. He's going to buy like the assets, right? Let's say if FTX does end up winning this thing, he's going to take all the Voyager assets. Before those assets are liquidated and returned to the customers, they will arb and trade those assets and make $100 million. That's what they do. They're geniuses at it. So I think the priorities have been shifted over the last couple of years on where that FTT token stands, whereas Voyager was very focused on the retail rewarding of the crowd and the utility there. So
I just did some quick reading. It's comparative to Voyager, but it's not like it's not in like the sexy tiers or whatever. It might be, this is preliminary, but some of the use cases are commissions received from transactions on FTX are used to buy back FTT and then burn them. Reduce trading fees and reduce spread on trades. It's quote unquote profits from massive market movements are distributed among holders. I don't know what that means. You get discounts by paying FTX things using FTT, such as listings, leverage products of your token. And then you can also stake FTT to earn benefits, via discounts, quote unquote bonus votes, quote unquote blockchain fee waivers.
Yeah, Nick, it's a clone
the
of
large
BNB.
majority seems to be fee discounts and spread discounts.
When they launched it, they cloned BNB, which BNB was a real forerunner when it came to this. That's why
BNB is now a hybrid because of the BSC blockchain and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people thought FTT would recreate BNB's movements, but it's a completely different tokenomic structure.
Yeah, and Noobie, we do need clarity on what FTX is going to do with the assets and what's besides 3AC or being left behind.
I read 3AC. If 3AC repays about 1/3 of the loan, then FTX is whole and the quote unquote gaps with Voyager.
Yeah, because the market conditions. So it's a good buddy of Doug and I's down the BVI is he has a pulse on what's going on there. He's part of the whole 3AC liquidation. I'd love to bring him on. I know he can't talk about anything, but when this is all done, I want to bring him on. And because the one thing I heard out of his mouth as a senior crypto partner down the BVI there was, so how's it going with the 3AC liquidation method, process? Goes, Alex, it's an absolute shit show. It is so bad, so tangled up. People are fighting over scraps. I was like, oh, this ain't gonna end well. So Joe, if you listen to what Nick just said, I think that's really the only way anybody's going to be made whole. Anybody asking, and that's going to be capturing at least 1/3 of what 3AC owes, but if anybody thinking that Sam Bankman-Fried is going to generously close that gap on his own, they're mistaken. It's not going to happen. He doesn't care if you walk or not, quite frankly. So that's our 2 Satoshis.
Yeah, I mean, it's better news than sitting in limbo, you know.
It is, and there's a lot of crap speculation going on, so definitely sift through it on crypto Twitter for sure. Folks,
Bitcoin also bouncing strongly off 19.3 since
I think we're gonna get a short hop. We're gonna get a little hop here. I don't doubt it.
I have a feeling we attack that liquidity of the recent highs, and then the market gets faced with either a local double top or a spring coil for higher. So it'll be interesting.
Then we go ditch digging again. Folks, I'm going to wrap it up right here because in 30 minutes, Nick Mancini will be on CoinDesk TV. That is in 30 minutes, right, Nick?
Yeah, 30 minutes, 25.
30 minutes. Nick will be live on CoinDesk TV. Check the Trade the Chain Twitter account for the link there if you're not in our Discord community. That's exciting stuff. I can't wait to watch that. Meanwhile, thank you. Sign up for our free newsletter. It's daily. It's pinned to the top of the live chat here. And don't forget John Nigerian joining us tomorrow on Twitter Spaces at 4:30 to talk about trading in the down market. Folks, thank you very much. We appreciate you all. And we'll see you again tomorrow.